You are standing inside the smoke-filled tension wire atmosphere of NASA's Mission Control in Houston. The date is November 20th, 1969. There are no introductions, no pleasantries, only the cold, hard data streaming in from 238,000 miles away. You are glued to the telemetry screens as the Apollo 12 astronauts, having safely returned to the command module, initiate the final sequence to jettison their lunar module ascent stage. This is not a random act of space disposal. It is a calculated physics experiment. A multi-ton metallic object is plummeting towards the lunar surface at thousands of miles per hour, aiming for a target just 40 miles from the newly installed passive seismic experiment. In the minds of the geologists at NASA, the script has already been written. They expect a standard geological impact, a sharp spike of kinetic energy followed by a rapid, thudding decay, as the shock waves are instantly absorbed by the dense solid rock of a planetary body. That is the immutable law of physics on Earth. When a meteor hits or a bomb detonates, the vibration dies within minutes, dampened by the crushing weight of the planet's core. But as the module slams into the gray regolith with the force of a ton of TNT, the needle on the seismograph does not settle. It begins to oscillate, and to the horror of everyone in the room,
What is that reading?
it keeps oscillating, defying every prediction. You stare at the paper chart unspooling, witnessing a wave of absolute confusion.
The zigzag
wash
lines are
over
getting
the control
bigger,
room.
not smaller.
Instead
It
of
looks like a
dying out,
chaotic storm of data.
the tremors begin to build in intensity, reaching a bizarre peak and maintaining a resonance that feels artificial. The moon is shaking, and it continues to shake, not for a few minutes, but for 55 minutes straight. Ken Johnson, a supervisor of data and photo control, would later describe that moment with a phrase that sent a chill through the scientific community. The moon rang like a bell. This is not the behavior of a solid rock. This is the behavior of a hollow, metallic structure. You are witnessing a physics paradox that violates every known model of natural planetary formation. If the moon were a solid sphere made of basalt and heavy iron, the shock wave would travel through the core and be dissipated by the sheer density of the material. Instead, the vibrations are traveling strictly along the surface and echoing through a vast, cavernous interior, bouncing back and forth with zero dampening. The event is not an outlier. Later, when the massive Apollo 13 SIV booster, weighing far more than the lunar module, was steered into the surface, the moon reacted even more violently, reverberating like a gong for over 3 hours and transmitting signals up to 25 miles deep. You realize that the density readings you have been studying are fundamentally wrong. The moon is far too light for its size. The sustained vibration proves there is no heavy iron core to absorb the blow. The only structural model that fits this insane seismic data is an extremely rigid, thin outer shell, covering a massive internal void. You are not looking at a celestial accident or a captured asteroid. You are looking at the hull of a constructed object. The impact didn't hit rock. It struck a metallic shield disguised as a world. You shift your gaze from the seismic readouts to the orbital mechanics, and the anomaly grows. From a geological curiosity into a mathematical impossibility. In the chaotic violence of the early solar system, moons are typically captured asteroids jagged, irregular rocks tracing elliptical, erratic paths around their gas giant masters. But you are staring at a trajectory that is suspiciously perfect. The moon circles the Earth in a nearly flawless circle, holding a stationary altitude that defies the natural laws of capture physics. A captured object of this mass entering
but the gravity whips it around and flings it away into the darkness.
Into the void by angular momentum or ripped apart by tidal forces. Instead, this object is locked in a synchronous rotation so precise that it keeps one face permanently fixed on Earth, hiding its dark side with the discipline of a soldier standing guard. You crunch the numbers on the size ratio, and the equation refuses to balance. Earth is the only planet in the solar system with a satellite of such colossal proportion relative to its host. 1/4 of the planet's diameter. It is less like a moon and more like a twin planet system. By all known laws of astrophysics, the Earth's gravity should not be strong enough to seamlessly capture an object of this mass. It would require the approaching body to have active braking mechanisms to shed velocity and enter such a stable orbit. Yet, here it sits, anchored in a gravitational sweet spot that is statistically zero. It behaves less like a natural celestial body and more like a space station that has fired thrusters to achieve a geostationary lock. Then you see the cosmic coincidence, the variable that turns skepticism into dread. You overlay the solar data onto your model. The moon is exactly 400 times smaller than the sun. Yet it is positioned exactly 400 times closer to Earth. This impossible integer geometry is what allows for a total solar eclipse, where the disk of the moon covers the disk of the sun. With razor-sharp precision, leaving only the corona visible. Nature creates rough averages. It does not create integer perfect alignments. To believe this is random chance is to believe a tornado could sweep through a junkyard and assemble a fully functioning Boeing 747 in the entire observable universe. We have never found another planet-moon star system with this specific artificial ratio. It suggests that the moon's distance was not determined by gravity, but by calibration. You are forced to consider that the orbit is not a natural groove worn by billions of years of physics. It is a calculated parking orbit. This object was not born from the dust of our Earth. It was navigated here, towed across the interstellar deep, and parked with a navigational accuracy. That suggests the intention of a Type 2 Kardashev civilization stabilizing a planetary experiment. The mathematics suggest that the moon is not a satellite. It is a calibrator. You descend from the impossible orbit to the scarred, crater-pocked face of the satellite itself. And the evidence of artificiality shifts from mathematical to structural. You are looking at a history of violence. For billions of years, the moon has acted as Earth's shield, absorbing impacts from asteroids and comets that would have been extinction-level events for our planet. Bio writes, the surface should be drilled through with deep, chaotic chasms. An object striking at 30,000 miles per hour should bury itself miles deep into the crust. But as you analyze the topography of the largest craters, giants like Gagarin, Kardashev, and the vast Mare Oriental, you notice a physical anomaly that defies the laws of ballistics. The craters are immense in width, yet impossibly shallow. It is as if the asteroids impacted a barrier they could not penetrate. Instead of gouging out a deep hole, the explosive force spread outward, stripping away the surface dust but failing to breach what lies beneath. You are witnessing the convex floor paradox. In a natural formation, a crater floor dips deep into the planet's interior. On the moon, the floors of the largest craters are flat or even bulging outward, following the curvature of the sphere. This is not how rock reacts to hypervelocity impact. This is how a hardened armored plating reacts. Imagine throwing a clump of mud against the side of a steel tank. The mud splatters wide, but it doesn't dent the steel. You realize that the soil of the moon, the regolith, is merely a cosmetic layer. A few miles of dust and crushed rock sprayed over a superstructure that is impervious to bombardment. The asteroids are stripping the paint, revealing the hull of the ship underneath. The chemical analysis of the samples brought back by Apollo confirms this suspicion. You are looking at spectral readings that show an abundance of refractory elements like titanium, chromium, and zirconium concentrated in these high-impact zones. These are not just rocks. They are the ingredients of high-grade aerospace alloys. In the Maria, the dark seas of the moon probes have detected traces of processed metals like brass, mica, and even uranium-236 and neptunium-237, isotopes that are byproducts of nuclear reactors and do not occur naturally. The implication is terrifying in its clarity. The moon is not a solid rock that withstood the bombardment of the early solar system. It is a constructed Dyson Shell, a megastructure protected by a hull of processed titanium alloy miles thick. It was built to endure a journey through the debris fields of interstellar space. The craters are not geological scars. They are the battle damage on a vessel that has survived a war with the cosmos itself. You are standing on the roof of a bunker that has protected Earth for eons, disguised as a desolate wasteland to keep the primitive life below from asking what lies inside. You are no longer looking at the surface. You are projecting your consciousness deep into the sublunar void, past the titanium shell and into the dark heart of the object. If the seismic data is correct and the interior is hollow, then the question shifts from structure to function. Why build a hollow sphere 2,000 miles wide and park it next to the third planet from the sun? You look at the Earth spinning in the distance, a fragile blue marble hanging in the dark. And you realize the answer lies in the tilt. Earth spins at a precise 23.5 degree angle relative to the solar plane.
The Earth breathes.
This specific inclination is the architect of our
As the tilt holds
seasons.
steady, we see the ice caps.
The metronome that drives the migration of species, the growth of forests, and the flow of ocean currents. Without it, the planet would either freeze in perpetual twilight or bake in an unceasing equatorial summer. But planetary physics dictates that this tilt should be unstable. Look at Mars. Without a massive stabilizer, its axis wobbles chaotically over millions of years, swinging wildly and eradicating any chance for long-term climate stability. Earth should be doing the same, but it isn't. It is held in a vice grip of gravitational stability. The moon is not just a nightlight. It is a celestial flywheel. It is a massive engineered gyroscope designed to lock Earth's axis in place. You are looking at the machinery of a Type 2 Kardashev civilization, a society capable of harnessing the energy of entire stars and manipulating planetary mechanics. The hollow moon theory suggested just the interior is likely housing a gravitational dampening field, or a massive kinetic energy storage system. Imagine the interior. Vast concentric rings of superconducting alloy spinning in a vacuum, generating the precise gravitational resonance required to counter the chaotic tug of Jupiter and the Sun. This is not passive mass. This is active stabilization. The mysterious maskens massive concentrations of gravity detected by NASA probes. Beneath the lunar maria are not dense lava flows, as the textbooks claim. They are the magnetic bearings of this colossal machine, the heavy machinery humming beneath the floorboards. Keeping the gyroscope balanced, you are witnessing a terraforming project on a solar system scale. The builders didn't just find Earth, they prepared it. They installed a climate control unit in orbit to ensure that the Petri dish remained stable enough for the experiment to grow. The energy required to maintain the system suggests a power source beyond nuclear fusion. Perhaps a zero-point energy tap or a contained microsingularity buried at the geometric center of the void. Pulling energy from the vacuum itself. The moon is not a satellite. It is an engine. And it has been running on autopilot for 4 billion years to keep our world habitable. You step away from the holographic models of orbital mechanics and walk into the silent, dust mote filled air of a vast library, pulling ancient texts from the shelves. If the moon is indeed an artificial construct that was parked in orbit, then there must be a memory of its arrival. We assume the moon has always been there, watching over the evolution of life from the very beginning. But the oldest records of humanity tell a very different story. You open the works of Aristotle and Plutarch.
Indeed, my friend. Observe the text closely.
And you find a term that sends a shiver through the conventional timeline: proselenes. The word literally translates to those who were before the moon. You are reading the history of the Arcadians, a Greek civilization known for its extreme antiquity. They claim their ancestors inhabited the Earth at a time when the night sky was pitch black, void of the silver orb we take for granted. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a chronological marker. They explicitly state that they are older than the moon. And they are not alone. You travel across the Atlantic to the high Andes of Bolivia, to the ruins of Tiwanaku. Here, the symbols on the gate of the sun speak of a time when the satellite arrived in the heavens, causing chaos and destruction before settling into its rhythm. The narrative consistency across disconnected cultures is statistically impossible unless they were witnessing the same global event. You turn to the oral traditions of the Zulu people in Africa. The shaman Credo Mutwa describes the moon not as a rock, but as an Aga hollow dwelling place of the Chitari. The legend describes two brothers, Wawan and Mpanku, who stole the moon from a great fire dragon and rolled it across the sky to the earth. They didn't describe it forming from dust. They described it being transported. You realize you are analyzing the testimony of witnesses to a planetary engineering project. The legends speak of the arrival causing cataclysmic floods and terrifying storms. Think about the physics. If a massive gravitational object like the moon were towed into Earth's orbit, the tidal forces would have gone berserk. The oceans would have been pulled out of their basins, creating the very deluges described in the Bible, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and nearly every indigenous famous creation myth? The Great Flood was not the wrath of God. It was the gravitational wake of the moon's engine insertion. The ancients weren't writing fairy tales. They were recording the trauma of a terraforming event. They saw a chariot parking in the sky when they drew dragons eating the sun during an eclipse. They weren't being primitive. They were describing the precise artificial docking of a shield. You are looking at the moon through their eyes now, not as a romantic companion, but as a newcomer. You turn your attention from the ancient texts back to the living, breathing world around you. You stand on a rocky coastline, watching the tide recede, exposing the wet, chaotic ecosystem of the intertidal zone. This is where biology tells its own version of the story. We are taught that life is a happy accident. A random series of mutations over billions of years. But as you analyze the specific conditions required for intelligent life to emerge, you realize the moon is not just a passive observer. It is the active catalyst. It is the stirrer in the petri dish. Without the moon's massive, disproportionate gravitational drag, Earth would be a very different and likely sterile hellscape. Physics dictates that without this lunar break, Earth would spin 3 times faster. Our days would be only 6 to 8 hours long. The centrifugal force would generate hurricane force winds of hundreds of miles per hour, scouring the surface constantly. Complex life trees, tall animals, humans could never stand up in such an environment. We would still be microbial slime hugging the ocean floor. To avoid being blown away, the moon slowed the spin. It installed the 24-hour rhythm. That is coded into the circadian clock of every cell in your body. But the engineering goes deeper. Look at the tidal pump.
Rushes out,
the moon drags the oceans across the continents,
a rhythmic pumping
creating
motion
vast
that
intertidal
shapes the
zones.
coastline.
Areas that are underwater for half the day and dry for the other half. This is the evolutionary crucible. This forcing mechanism is what compelled aquatic life to develop lungs and limbs to withstand the harshness of dry land. It wasn't a choice. It was an eviction notice served twice a day by the orbital mechanics of the satellite. The moon literally pulled our ancestors out of the water. You look closer at the human biological code, and the synchronization becomes impossible to ignore. The average human menstrual cycle is 28 days. The lunar orbital period is 28 days. We are chemically, hormonally tethered to the cycles of that gray sphere. In a random universe, there's no reason for a primate on Earth to match the orbital period of a rock 238,000 miles away. It suggests a biological uplift program. It implies that the builders didn't just terraform the planet, they tuned the life forms upon it to resonate with the station's frequency. You realize the terrifying purpose of the machine. It is a biological centrifuge. It was parked here to stabilize the climate, slow the rotation, and churn the oceans just enough to force evolve high complexity intelligence. We are not the masters of this planet. We are the crop. The moon is the artificial womb that nurtured us, shielding us from asteroids and regulating our temperature. Until we were smart enough to look up and notice the camera. The impossible coincidences of its size. Orbit and composition are not miracles. They are the specifications of a laboratory incubator. And we have finally grown just intelligent enough to read the serial number on the wall. You stand in the darkness of a backyard observatory, peering through a telescope at the Aristarchus crater. The brightest spot on the lunar surface. For centuries, astronomers have reported something that official science struggles to explain. Transient lunar phenomena, TLP. You were looking for the lights? Since the 1700s, credible witnesses, from William Herschel to the astronauts of Apollo 11, have reported seeing strange pulsing glows. Red mist and flashing strobes on the gray regolith. NASA dismisses them as outgassing. Or piezoelectric discharges from shifting rocks. But you know, rocks don't blink in binary code. You analyze the distribution of these lights and notice they cluster around the edges of the Maria. Exactly where the structural stress of a hollow hull would be greatest. They are not random geological events. They are mechanical status indicators. Imagine walking past a massive, dormant supercomputer in the dark. You see the faint, rhythmic pulsing of standby LEDs. That is what TLP is. It is the motherboard of the moon cycling through diagnostic checks. The machine is not dead. It is merely in sleep mode. But recently, the lights have been increasing in frequency. You look at the data from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and you see new high-albedo scarps forming. Surface features that suggest the moon is shrinking or contracting slightly. A geologist calls it cooling. You recognize it as the repressurization of an internal atmosphere or the shifting of internal ballast. The Sentinel's waking up. You realize that for our entire history, we have been living in a one-way mirror. We look up and see a rock. The intelligence inside looks down and sees a laboratory. The man in the moon is not a pareidolia trick of the light. It is the face of the architect. We have sent probes. We have walked on its skin, and we have even bombarded it with rockets. Yet the door remains shut, but the silence is not empty. It is the silence of a server rack, waiting for a specific input command. We are the experiment, and the moon is the camera. That has been recording every frame of our existence, waiting to transmit the final data packet back to the stars. So, where does this leave us? You step back from the telescope and look up at the night sky with naked eyes. The familiar silver disk hangs there, beautiful and terrifying. You can no longer see it as a romantic companion, or a dead rock. You see it for what it truly is, a titanium construct, a celestial anchor, a silent machine that has nurtured and watched us for eons. The fear of the unknown begins to fade, replaced by a profound, cosmic humility. We are not alone in the universe. We're not even alone in our own orbit. We are the children of a technological intervention, living in the shadow of a Dyson Shell. That gave us time, tides, and life itself. The question is no longer who built it. The question is, now that we are finally awake enough to knock on the door, who is going to answer?